There's a storm across the valley. The clouds are rolling in. The afternoon is heavy on your shoulders. There's a truck out on the 4-lane, a mile or more away. The whining of his wheels just makes it colder.
Welcome to Community Forum. My name is Priscilla, Almquist-Olsen, your host. Today is November 15th, 2022. And today it gives me great pleasure to welcome our relatively new fire chief, Chief Justin Alexander, to the program so that you can all meet him, get to know him, and trust him. He is quite a wonderful person, and he's very dedicated to his job and to our community. So welcome, Justin.
Thank you, Priscilla. Appreciate you having me.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell me a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and how your interest in fire and protection of citizens from fire, where did all that come from?
Well, I come from a long line of firefighters, so fourth generation, very proud of that.
Wow.
So my great-grandfather was a firefighter, so I come from Rainham, grew up in Rainham, so right next door. My father was on the Rainham Fire Department, my brother still is now. Many relatives have come along the way through there. And so I was exposed, my first memories are really at the fire station. So I was always around the firefighters and at the fire station. And so there was a time growing up where I was always going to be a firefighter, always. And then, I don't know, you get to that phase where you're like, do I want to do, the family job? Do I want to do that? And I was like, oh, maybe I'll go be a pilot because I'm a private pilot. And like, maybe I'll go be an airline pilot. Maybe a lawyer, maybe a doctor. You get in that phase in your teenage years, you're not sure what you're going to do. So I went through that phase, and then I decided to come back to it. So I went and got my EMT and started working in the private ambulance service. And then I ended up on the Plainville Fire Department in 2004 and stayed there until I came here. I took over there as chief in 2013 when I was 32 and left there and came here last May a year and a half ago. So May of 21, and I'm very pleased to be here, and it's a wonderful community to be a part of, and looking forward to spending what I hope is the rest of my career here.
Well, you really had an apprenticeship, I would say, from 4 generations, 2 of which are still alive, I assume. Or 3.
So I have 2. Well, my father would be the oldest generation that's alive at this point.
Yes.
Yeah, my grandfather passed a couple years ago. So. So it goes back, but my father retired in 2003, and my brother carried the torch in Rainham. I'm the one who left, so that sometimes I get a little ribbon for that. Sometimes I'm over in Rainham because I'm the one who left, but I stayed in the service, and we work as one of the great things about being in Easton is I get to work with Rainham. I was in Plainville, we were too far away, so I get to work with my where I grew up, and now I get to be part of this great community. So it's been wonderful.
Wonderful. But it's extraordinary because I think most chief of fire departments don't have that early education that you did, at your father's knee, shall we say. And wow, that's really important. Gives you a lot of insight. It also gives you a lot of understanding of how to make decisions quickly in situations that come up. Can you tell me about one that you remember that you called upon your early childhood to make a decision that you might not have known otherwise?
Well, I think, some of the advice I've gotten over the years, my father gave me some great advice. The worse something is, the calmer you have to be. Because everybody, when you're in this position, everybody looks at you, and if you're panicked, they're panicked. So, it's exciting when, people have that. And so when you think about calls along the way, in 2015, we had a plane crash in Plainville where, it was a big response, and, unfortunately some people perished, but that required, to dig deep into your command presence and lead people through that. So, that was one of those situations. And then, a more recent example here in Easton was, unfortunately, we had a bomb scare at the school, and working with Chief Boone and working through that with him and the school staff was great. And you learn that the skills you've been honed even from a young age come to the surface, and you lead your staff through it, and that's what it's all about. That's your job. So I mean, a lot of the day-to-day in my position is emails and answering questions and putting out fires, but not the literal fires. And so when you have to put your crafts, to work, it's rewarding that you get to do so.
Sure. And I was going to ask you about that recent fire, a bomb scare. So how did that come about, and what was your first response? Did you get notification from the police, or how does that work?
So it depends how it comes in. So in the case of the bomb scare at the schools, it was called in through our 911 center, and we were dispatched, police and fire. And we arrive and we form what we call a unified command between police and fire, and we figure out what we have to do, analyze the situation, get all the data and facts together, and decide how far we have to go with this particular situation, whether it be evacuation, moving students, how we search the school. And that's a joint effort. Because it crosses disciplines. We have the police have certain roles, fire has certain roles, and we're very fortunate at Easton to have a fire and police department that works so well together. A lot of communities don't have that.
But you also live next door to each other.
Correct.
So your communication can be a matter of seconds, so minutes.
It is.
To have face-to-face discussions.
Absolutely. I think it's important to have the police and fire chief need to have a really strong relationship. I can tell you, like Chief Boone, even Chief Sullivan before. We speak regularly. We get lunch together. We're texting at random hours about things. It's important to have that not just professional, but you get to have the friendship. And because when a bad situation occurs that we have to work to fix, we have to trust each other.
Right.
And we have to know that we have each other's back. And trusting Chief Boone is a great example. I'm not a police officer, so I don't know in the ins and outs of their job. But I have complete faith that if he's got something for me to take care of, he's going to handle it in a way that I can trust, and he has the same for me. And by having that, we can protect this town in great ways.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. So now, do you reside in town?
No, I live in Plainville.
Oh, you still live in Plainville,
I
your
still live in Plainville.
hometown.
Yeah, so I would say that was my adopted hometown. I moved there in 2015, I suppose.
Oh, that's right, because you grew up in Rainham.
Yeah, so I moved there. I was on the force there from '04. Finally moved there in 2015. And then through a whole bunch of circumstances, I ended up here in Easton, and thankful for it.
Yeah, well, earlier we were talking about the transformation of Plainville into a cultural center, all because of Jeff Kinney.
Correct.
And who's the author of those books? What are the names of those books again?
Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Diary of
A Wimpy Kid.
Of a Wimpy Kid, yes. Yeah. And you just said he made several movies have been made.
Yeah, and he has a lot of merchandise and the book line, and the students, of all ages, typically have read something. So he is a resident of Plainville, and he has been a wonderful benefactor to the town and built with The Unlikely Story. If you haven't ever been to The Unlikely Story in Plainville, it's a beautiful bookstore, and they host lots of events with various authors and various people of all walks of life that people come to meet and have book signings and speak with or hear speak. And he plans to do a lot of great things downtown. So it's becoming a very cultural center. And
well, that's something to keep an eye on. You said Chelsea Clinton just came recently.
She did. Yeah, Chelsea Clinton's been in there a couple times, yeah.
Yeah, and so the website would be the name of the store, An Unlikely Story?
So I think it was a play on words for him because, he wasn't an author from the beginning. So when he became successful with his first book, it was an unlikely story. So I think that's where it comes from. That's
Sure.
the rumor. You'd have to actually ask him, but that's where I think the play on words comes from.
Yeah. So when you were in Plainville, what was your position there?
I started as a firefighter, and then I went through all the ranks. Lieutenant, which was a captain in Easton, we ran a shift. And then to deputy chief for a short time, and then chief. And I stayed chief from 2013 to 2021 when I came here.
So you came as a chief.
I did.
That's wonderful. Wow, we got something special, didn't we?
I hope so. I'd like to think so. I don't want to sound, it was nice to be able to take over, having nearly 8 or 9 years as a chief already under my belt, because I could bring the skill set of a chief to Easton without having to learn it. So you were getting the skill set already learned right out the gate, which, you know, it depends on who you ask, I suppose.
Yeah.
That's a good or bad thing. I think it's a good thing.
Wonderful, because
hit the ground running.
Yeah, so often, at least in the school system, I know that superintendents are deputy superintendents. Very rarely do you get a superintendent who's been a superintendent, you know, because there's probably no reason for them to leave. And so what were your reasons for coming to Easton?
So I think there's a few different things. I mean, I had done, you know, it depends on how you look at, you know, a chief's tenure. Some chiefs take over at the end of their career and do 3 years and then they leave. Some do 20-something years like I will do as a total time. I'll have probably 23 years as a chief when I retire. So I think it's a combination of things. You know, there was some difficulties in Plainville financially, which was trying. And then combine that with the time that I already put in there. You at some point you run your playbook and you don't want to become ineffective as a leader. And you want to make sure that you're not holding an organization back. And I think if you start to question if you're doing that, if you internally look at that, you should take a look and see, like, am I doing more harm than good? Am I bringing the newest and greatest ideas? Is there somebody else who can? So I combined those things all together and saw the posting for the Easton job.
Yeah.
And I thought, boy, what an opportunity this would be to bring what I learned to the table and start with a department and spend the next bunch of years working with the staff I have here who are amazing to drive it forward. So a lot of great reasons to come, and it was some good timing. And also knowing about Easton made it worth applying.
Yeah, what is it you like the most about Easton?
You know, I think it's actually very similar to where I like the Plainville side. So Easton's really like 3 times the size of Plainville, but it has the same redeeming qualities. It has your built-up areas. It has the rural areas and the walking trails. It's big enough that we can have services, which is something I really do like, but small enough that you can still connect with the leaders of the community. So those are all like really valuable things that I found appealing, that I wouldn't just be a department head in a city of 600,000 where it's, you know, you can't get an audience with the mayor or the boss. You know, here I can reach out and get, you know, if I need help or guidance, we're not so big that it's like take a number. And so you were able to gain a little bit of the service side by having being a little bit bigger, but you redeem that really nice small town quality. So it was really a nice fit.
Well, you're a small town guy, aren't you?
I do like the small. I like that personal connection. I like being involved in different organizations and, you know, helping out where I can, whether it be, you know, the Festival of Trees or NRT or the Lions or whatever it may be.
Are you a Lion?
I am not a Lion. I've been recruited many
Oh,
times.
me too.
I have.
Someday we'll both join.
The Plainville Lions was, they were a great supporter over the years. They gave me Citizen of the Year in 2017, I think.
Really?
Yeah, so I mean, the Lions have been outstanding.
Yes, they are.
Great organization, so.
Well, they just gave me an award, too. I was invited by Michelle McGee, who's the communications director, to one of their Wednesday meetings, and I thought she was trying to recruit me again. No, my name was called. I went up to the mic and I got this award for my creativity and helping to create a video about the Lions Thrift Store with Michelle McGee.
Oh, great. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was quite a surprise. So
wonderful.
the Lions do recognize people,
They do.
and I think that's very important.
I'm impressed with the size and involvement of the Easton Lions. Like, it's a very robust organization.
Well,
so.
you know, it was just a few years ago that they were voted the best Lions Club in the world.
Oh,
Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yes, it's international.
Wow.
Yeah, in the world.
So I mean, and it's not just the Lions. There are so many active organizations in this town, which is it's great to see that involvement.
So tell me, which organizations are you involved in?
In general, in Easton itself.
Well, in general, or in Easton both.
So, so in Easton, I basically, anybody I've reached out to or has reached out to me, I try to help out. And I think it's all the organizations, all the things that you see, whether it's, you know, Family Fun Day at Borderlands or the NRT Festival, anything we can help out with as the fire department, myself, anything like that. So it's been, you know, a year and a half, you're just starting to learn where all these things are and when they are. So I'm excited, and you're starting to learn. People are starting to learn how to get a hold of me, and, you know, it's things like this that help. this interview, and call me on my cell phone. It's readily available. It's on my email. I want to be approachable. But outside of that, a lot of my involvement is civically at home. I'm on the planning board and chair of the school committee at home, so that keeps me occupied. My personal passion is aviation outside of the fire service, so I spend a lot of my time around aviation. So those are really, if you ask me, like outside of my family, I have 2 daughters and married, and so outside of taking care of the family and the home, helping out civically, I guess I'm if I see something that could use help, I always want to help. Like that's my goal.
Well, I mean, if you're chairman of the school committee and of the planning board in Plainville, those are 2 jobs that normally would take 2 people. And then you're the fire chief in Easton, and now in terms of people contacting you if they have a question or they have a concern, you're readily available on the Easton website, right?
Yes.
So that would be www.easton.ma.us.
Yeah, and there's a link to the fire department there. And I would just say my email address is really simple. I would give that out, and feel free to email me. It's jalexander, ALEXANDER, @easton.ma.us. And you can email me anytime.
Boy, that's easy. And there are no dots between J and Alexander.
No, just one.
J. Alexander at easton.ma.us.
Absolutely. And you can email me anytime, and I'm usually pretty quick with the email responses. So.
Well, I can see that you have quick answers, you are articulate, and you know your job. So you should be very proud of that. I'm sure your father is.
Yes, he is. Yeah, he came up. So he lives in Texas now. He retired from up here, and he moved to Texas. And he flew up for my swearing in here, which was really great to have him here.
Yeah, of
very
course.
Proud to have him and be up there with me, and so it was really nice to see that. I had my brother there and my father, and I'm sure my grandfather and other family members were looking down on it. So
sure,
it's being sworn in is it's a big moment. When it's Plainville and here, they're both equally as important to me. So
yeah. Now tell me, you must now you've been here a year and a half. So you have obviously seen needs that you would like to implement if the funds are available. So what are some of those needs?
Well, I think the town has been really responsive to the fire department's needs over the years. Like we have a new fire engine coming. There's a new ladder truck that's on the docket for capital for next year. Our ladder truck's a 1999. It's getting pretty tired.
Yeah,
So that's been identified. That's not new. We're just carrying the capital plan. We were very structured. The town as the whole, not just the fire department, has a very structured capital plan. So that's been identified. And then you always get to the staffing. I think it's important that we have sufficient staff. And interestingly, I think our staffing model, although can we always use more firefighters? Sure. I think right now we're in a good place pending the building project. Because the building project will let us see if we can use our staff in a more efficient manner.
So tell us about that building that's going to be part of our future.
So next year, leading up to that, the town has been, last year at the fall town meeting, $500,000 was appropriated to explore a new municipal police, fire, and DPW project. What came out of all that work and study was that the DPW would most likely, it has been selected to go to the Gill Farm property on Depot Street. And police
Which property?
The Gill Farm.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Yeah. So the front 10 acres was, or I should say the front, but 10 acres was carved out for municipal use.
Exactly, right.
So that was easy to identify. There's sewer there for DPW, very important, great location for the police. And then the question was, well, where does fire go? And because if you don't know, we have 3 fire stations, and 2 of our stations have 2 firefighters each in it. So one of the issues we identified was that for the Bay Road station for Southeastern, when the ambulance goes out, there's nobody there after that. So if you have a call that comes in after the ambulance is out, which is about 20 to 25% of the time, there's nobody there, and the trucks have to come from further away. So we said, boy, I wonder if we can utilize this building project to make our fire response more robust. And if we can strategically place 2 fire stations, we can go down to 2 stations and spread our staff out between 2 instead of 3 stations. And what that means is that the Southeastern Fire Station, which if that would be located at the Gill Farm, would have a fire engine staffed. So even if the ambulance is out, we would still have a fire engine available.
And that has been restored beautifully, hasn't it? Southeastern Station.
That's our Bay Road station. So
Oh.
the Depot Street station was restored.
I
our
mean
station
Depot.
two. Yeah, Depot was restored.
Yes.
Beautiful building, great restoration. It's intended for use for emergency management if this project goes through. It wouldn't be housing a fire truck at that point.
Okay.
The building itself is beautiful, but doesn't have the space for what we need to do, having 4 firefighters and multiple trucks there. So the town has no interest in discarding that building, but we would use it for our emergency management, our CERT team, things like that. But we would have a station at Gill Farm on Depot Street. And if anybody doesn't know what Gill Farm is, it's kind of near Shaw's, right next to the Whistle Stop, before the power lines. And so we would be there with that would be our headquarters. And then at Daly's Corner, across from Hilliard's, would be a substation. And each of those would have at least 2 trucks in them, so that both sides of town would have an ambulance and a fire engine staffed to protect them, and there wouldn't be the void, because 20% of the time, there's nobody in South Easton to respond, and we want to stop that.
Now, I understand from a town meeting last night that Stonehill has offered land for a fire station, but land to be leased. It would seem to me that purchasing it would be the smarter thing instead of at least it goes on ad infinitum.
Yeah, I don't want to get into areas that are outside of my realm, which would be negotiating leases and purchases, but what I will say is that Stonehill is a great partner in the community, and they're looking to help us if it can. And
yes, they are, but there is a history too that you might not know about. For many years they felt that because they were tax exempt that they didn't owe Easton anything, even though our fire came there, our police, we provided lots of services. And so finally, after many years, we got 40,000. And I think we're still getting only 40,000, which does not cover the expenses. So we're underwriting a lot of their fire and police needs. So I think a really good gesture for Stonehill, given the history, would it be in gratitude to donate that land to the town?
Well, I think there's a couple pieces there. I think that while I'm definitely not going to dive into the tax status of Stonehill.
I don't expect you to.
No,
That's just
but
fine.
I will say that for all of our ambulance services and everything that we go up there for, we do get payment for those. So those do get billed. So we're not.
Just the ambulance, but
the
not,
ambulance, and the fire responses, and we do go up there, but it's not. We primarily go up there for medical emergencies. So just want to be that we're not providing free ambulance service to Stonehill. Like there
no.
bill.
I realize that. And by the way, that's just my editorial comment.
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think that the Daily Corner discussion, whether you buy or lease,
or donate.
I can't speak for Stonehill, but I think that the desire would be for us to be there in perpetuity. But if we ever decided to leave, I don't think they would want anything else there, and I think that's the issue. So you could stay there the town could stay there as long as we want.
Well, the thing is, okay,
if you ever want to leave.
Well, Justin, as a retired lawyer, that's easily solvable because you can simply have a reverter clause, which is a restriction which runs with the land, which means in perpetuity, that if for any reason the town sells the building or wants to for a purpose other than the purpose that Stonehill agreed to donate it for, the property will be reverted to the college. They would get it back.
There's now that we've had the conclusion of last night's special town meeting, I think there will be robust conversations about Daly's Corner and how best to proceed.
Yeah.
And I think I won't be privy to those conversations, and but I'm certain that the people who are will have the best interest of the town in mind.
Yeah.
And they will get it done in a way that benefits us and helps
And of
us.
course, I don't know if you know this, but the Ames family donated all of that acreage. It belonged to Easton's famous prominent family, the Ameses. So they got that as a gift. So just giving a little tiny parcel back as a gift would be a wonderful and gesture of gratitude, because the very existence of that college is due to an Easton family. who donated all of that land.
I'm certain they will be watching this on ECAT. And we'll listen to your editorial on that.
Well, we'll see. It's all very interesting. And so what are your visions for the future?
Well, I think for the short term, the 5-year future, I think it's important that we address our building issues.
Yes.
And then take a look on the other end to make sure our staffing issues fit the growth of the town. So I think those two things will run in parallel. I mean, I think it's to say that just because we build a new station system and we can use our staff more efficiently that we won't need more firefighters in the future would be short-sighted. It does help, but it doesn't solve.
Yeah, you mentioned that before.
Yeah,
but any
but
other?
that's the 5-year.
Right. Okay. And what about long term?
So long term, I think after that, it's getting into a routine of continuing our professionalization of our department. Accreditation, improving our ISO rating, and all of these projects that
What's
we're
an
doing.
ISO
So
rating?
ISO rating is the rating given to the town for insurance purposes.
Oh, okay.
And with one being the best, and then they go higher from there depending upon it. So if you're in a high numbered community, you probably don't have a full-time fire department, maybe no fire hydrants. The ultimate goal is to be a class 1 fire department.
And what are we now?
It depends on what area, because we have a couple areas with no fire hydrants, but we're in the 3-4 range right now.
Uh-oh.
So that's not bad.
It
That's
isn't?
okay. That's
Oh,
okay. That's a
okay.
great department. That's a great department. There are only just a very small handful of class 1 departments in Massachusetts and across the country.
Really?
Yes, it's extremely difficult to get to. So we're not bad. We have a very robust fire hydrant system, a full-time fire department with multiple stations. The town is well protected.
So what do we know that now, but what do we need to get a better ranking?
So things will help our better ranking will be our equipment. So they rate a few things. They rate our dispatch center, which we have the regional dispatch center, which our SEMREC is what it's called, and that checks all the boxes. So basically what they do is they come in with a checklist, and the more boxes you check of different things, like do you have 2 fire engines or 3 fire engines or 4 fire engines, each one of those gets you points. And with our dispatch center, all the points that are eligible, they get. So that's a great reason that we regionalize our dispatch, because that's how professional they are. And one of the things we're working on internally in the fire department is training documentation. We train a lot, but our software is what tracks the training. We just upgraded to new software, so we can start to track all of our training. There's a lot of points in training. Our DPW water division does a great job with our fire hydrants, and we'll be able to take a look at all the points that we need to get through our water system and make sure we're ready, so when the inspection comes, we get all the points.
Are you able to add fire hydrants?
Sure. So if there's a new subdivision that comes in, you could add a fire hydrant. So right now, we basically, nearly the entire town has a fire hydrant. And where there isn't technically a fire hydrant in front of a house, the fire hydrants are close enough that we can reach them with the hose we have on the truck. So we can make it work. So basically 100% of our residents have fire hydrant protection.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, it is great.
And I remember growing up as a kid, there were fire alarm boxes everywhere, and if there was a fire, that's how you communicated.
Right.
Now it's all high technology, and you make a phone call and you get dispatched by the dispatchers, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now, most of the calls now come in through cell phones.
Yeah. And I remember as a kid that it was the fire alarms that I think they had 2 alarms, boom, boom, and then pause, boom, boom, and it meant it was a snow day.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah,
the
absolutely.
kids were so happy, and we're always listening for those fire alarms.
Yeah, I grew up with that too. They had a horn on top of the fire station, a big loud horn. We had them in Easton too.
Okay.
And you'd hear the horn go
That
off,
was
and it
it,
would be
the
different
horn.
things. The horn. Mansfield had a horn, Rainham had a horn, Easton had a horn. I remember as a kid, it used to scare me at night because the horn would go off when there was a fire call.
Oh.
And it would go off 6 times, and it used to wake me up and scared. Like my mother would come running in because she knew I was gonna be awake. I can remember us being maybe 4 or 5 years old,
Yeah.
scared of it at 2 in the morning because I only lived about 700 feet from the fire station.
Oh my goodness.
So it was like right on top of us. So it was so loud. They don't use it for that anymore. I don't
No.
think any community does. Not near here,
No.
anyways.
But we greeted that sound with lots of joy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Snow day.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
okay.
wonderful.
And so, in conclusion, how does the weather affect your performance? I mean, you've got snow in the winter, you've got rain in the spring, and so forth. I imagine the biggest challenge would be winter.
Yeah, winter is a real challenge for us. If the really cold days, we really hope not to have a fire. We don't want a fire anytime, but if we had to pick the weather to not have a fire in, it is ice cold weather. Our trucks carry water, our hose carries water. Water in the cold weather do not cooperate. And that's when we start to get frozen fire hydrants and frozen pumps on trucks. And we try to take special considerations to keep the water moving so it doesn't freeze. Then you end up with an ice rink in front of the house that's on fire because all the water's everywhere and it froze. Firefighters are sliding. We're calling the DPW for sanders, trying to sand the fire scene. And then on top of that, our firefighters are freezing. So it's only warm when you're inside putting the fire out. Everything else is ice cold. You're covered. If you look online, you see like pictures of like icicles hanging from firefighters' faces and their gear. I've been on some really cold ones. It's hard. But summer is also a problem.
Really?
So although we don't have the problems with the operation as far as water and the trucks, our firefighters overheat. We basically wear a super snowsuit. Is basically what our fire gear is. I mean, it insulates us, so we can't get rid of our body heat, and then it bakes us like we're in an oven.
So tell me, that brings up another question, because there's been a lot of news lately about the equipment, the gear that the firefighters wear, and that there's a lot of the PFAS, forever chemicals, which are in those garments. And I don't know, I'm sure there's been a study of how many firefighters have died from cancer as a result of that. What is Easton doing to, is there a possibility to get equipment that doesn't have PFAS in it?
Yeah, we're very, very fortunate. So, PFAS is a real problem, and
yeah, PFAS, I'd say.
So PFAS, it's the same thing.
Same
so I'm just saying PFAS because I do it all the time.
No,
PFAS.
right.
So so PFAS is a real problem. It was in our firefighting foam, which we've now changed out. So the town's taken some great steps to solve the PFAS problem to the best of its ability, whether it be the water treatment, the filtering, what they're going to do for the water system. But for the fire department, very proactive. When I first came here, it was already in progress to remove the old foam that had the PFAS in it from our trucks and replace it with the PFAS safe foam. So that was one place that we had a lot of PFAS in the fire service.
That's wonderful to know.
So that was right out the gate. And then at the annual town meeting this year that just passed, we were very fortunate that the residents supported and our town leadership supported creating a fire gear replacement program as part of the capital budget. So our fire gear expires every 10 years, and we have 2 sets. So what's on capital now is every 5 years we get a set of gear for the whole department. So you spend 5 years with your gear in the front, and then your gear goes to the back as your backup gear for 5 years, and then you retire it because it expires. So no firefighter is operating with fire gear that's more than 5 years old as their primary gear. But what's nice about this one is we're able to get our outer shell without PFAS now, and we're very excited about that.
What about the inner shell?
So the inner shell has some, but not as much, and the next generation after that will have the inner shell without it. So we're gonna the part that we grab the most, the outer shell, and we pick it up, we put it on. We're getting rid of that. That's the first one to get rid of it. So
when
that
does
cuts
that happen?
Just through different materials and product lines that they're doing.
No, when?
Oh, when it's in progress right now. So
I
we had
see.
the funds approved back in May, and the gear's ordered, and you know how long everything takes these days, unfortunately. But the gear's ordered, and we're very excited to get a reduced PFAS. So the outer shell is PFAS free. So there's a lot of like misnomers like what's coming. So the outer shell is PFAS free.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the inner shell because that's closest to the body.
It is. We're not 100% there, but we are very, very close.
So when will the inner shell be replaced?
I think in the next generation of gear, it'll be replaced.
So in 5 years?
Yeah, and I think that's probably what's going to take to get PFAS out of the inner shell. Because the problem is the way they produce the gear, they're trying to come up with the science behind it to still protect us
Sure.
without that in it. And it's the devil. It's you have the PFAS in it, but you get rid of the PFAS and you lose the thermal protection. You get burned in a fire. So they're struggling to take care of that. But where the inner liner, no PFAS is great, but the inner liner is in contact with our clothes usually. It's on the outside, so it's not as much skin contact. But the outer layer, we actually touch the outer layer more than we do the inner layer with our gear.
Okay.
So
Right.
yes, you do touch the inner layer, I don't want to say, but whenever we grab our gear and pick it up, whenever we move our gear, whenever we touch it, whenever it's out in the open, that outer shell is exposed. So getting that taken care of right out the gate.
That's great.
Yeah, so it's a huge step in the right direction. We're very excited about it and appreciate the support to do it.
Well,
So,
that's a great vision, and you are in the right place at the right time to provide the right skill set. So we appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate
This has been a
that.
wonderful interview, and you've been so informative and engaging, of course. But I think the citizens of Easton who are viewing this interview would agree with me that we have certainly benefited from his appointment as chief. Justin Alexander, let's not forget that name, and know that he is approachable, and please give him an email, shoot him an email at jalexander@easton.ma.us, and I'm sure he'll respond. And thank you so much, Justin, for being here and providing so much wonderful information and giving us an insight to all of your expert knowledge. We feel very safe, very protected.
Thank you very much, Priscilla. I appreciate you having me and being here and a chance to speak with all of you at home, too. So thank you.
Well, thank you again. And to all our viewers, I hope you've enjoyed this interview as much as we have enjoyed presenting it to you. Until next time, Priscilla Almquist-Olsen bidding you farewell and be well.